Okay, can everybody hear me today? Haven't tested the sound just yet, but I wanted to show you some more sensorless homing with the TMC2130. So let me bring up the screen because apparently my transitions don't seem to be working. So how's the sound? Let me check on the chat, see if anybody's in there. Okay, waiting on for a couple people to chime in. But what I'll do now is I'll start walking through how to do TMC2130s on various Big Tree Tech motherboards. So I need to point out a couple of quick things. I'm only going to be working with the X-axis. This is what your board looks like for default for the SKR version 1.4. And this is the turbo version. So you have your X stepper, your Y stepper, your Z stepper, E0 and E1. This is going to be your TMC2130. On the back side of it, there's extra pins. So that's how we figure out how to actually connect it based on the pin order over here. We also have to worry about jumpers. In this case, the board comes in default for the SKR, or excuse me, for the TMC2130. It's already got the jumpers in the right position right here. And on this particular board, you don't have to worry about the actual jumper for the end stop. I will show you on other boards the difference. So I'm just going to insert this, and then I'm going to bring you over to VS Code so you can see how to do this. This time I'll remember to plug this in at least on the first try. If anybody was watching last night, I forgot to. So in order to set this up, we need to go over to VS Code. So I'm going to take us over to VS Code right over here. And inside VS Code, let me see if this is displaying right. Sorry about that. Let me adjust it. There we go. So inside VS Code, we're going to go to Open. Then we're going to go to Downloads, Marlin 2.0.x. This is the most current one as of a couple of days ago. So we're going to go into the second Marlin folder after it's been extracted and click Select Folder. Inside Select Folder, we need to go to Source for boards.h. Inside boards.h, we're going to search on SKR. And the one that we're working with is actually the turbo version. So it's this one right down here. So I'm going to copy this. And we're going to note that it's an LPC 1769. So I'm going to go back over to configuration.h. I'm going to search on motherboard. And I'm going to change the default motherboard to that board. Then up above, I'm going to change the serial port to -1. And we're going to invert the stepper to start, just to save some time. So I have to find it real quick here. But this theoretically moves in the opposite direction, so we're going to assume that it's wrong to start. If not, we can change it later. So I'm going to change that to true. The other thing we need to search on is the stepper, so we're going to search on A4988. We're going to remove the actual comment in front of here so we can change it to the TMC2130, which is right here. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that right there. Next, I'm going to go over to the advanced configuration because I'm going to ignore making changes here initially. I'll let you figure those out on your own. I've talked about them enough. But on advanced configuration.h or config_adv.h, we're going to search on 800 just to get us in the neighborhood. And the reason that I'm doing that is to show you the actual milliamp pulse. So this is where you would adjust your current for milliamps. I'm going to say look up on your data sheets how to set up root mean square for the moment. I'm just trying to save some time because if I go into root mean square, essentially what it means is the square root of 2. That's what this value is right here. That has to do with the averaging of the motor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first search on a couple of important things that we have to change here. So first we're going to add TMC debugging. So I'm going to search on TMC_debug. And I'm going to remove the comment. This way we can use the actual debug commands right here. This one didn't always work out as planned last night, but this one always works to show us if things are working. Then I'm going to search on monitor _driver _status. And it looks like this one is already uncommented. So normally that has a comment in front of it. That's kind of weird that it's actually, I'm sorry, TMC debug I didn't actually uncomment, so I'm not paying attention. So let me search on that. There it is. So now that we got that done, there's one more important thing that we have to set up just to get this to work right, because it won't work initially unless we set this. So we're going to search on TMC use _software. This needs to be uncommented in order for us to actually use the SPI for stepping. So now that we have all that set, we need to set the platform IO.ini. And like I said before, this is the LPC1769 because it's the turbo version. So I'm just going to upload it to the board in a moment. But in order to do that, I actually have it running on direct power. So I have to plug it in with the USB cable. So I'll show you that real quick. So on the workbench, I just plugged in the USB, and we need to have this in the position that it runs off this power so we can use this. So I'm going to plug that in. We didn't see any smoke, that's good. So let's see what happens when I load the firmware. So I'm going to click over here, and keep in mind that I haven't actually cleaned my last build out, so this might take more than one build. So let's try the first one and see what happens. When I rapidly change between builds, you'll see a lot of failures because it's got the old build on it probably. But let me check on the chat while this is going on. Hey, Little Tech. Hey, 3 Head Tutor. Sorry I missed your comment about going on a trip. You're taking a airplane or a boat, you said? Actually, it was a boat, I believe. You're going to be away for like 3 weeks? So let me check on the build here real quick. Looks like we've just completed in 25 seconds. So what I'm going to do is actually remove the power from the board, but I'll show you what's going on real quick. I just had to bring up the screen. So over here, on my desktop, here's the actual previous build, and this is the one we just compiled. So I'm going to remove the power from the actual wall. That'll disappear in a second because it holds a little bit of capacitance. Then I'm going to plug it back in, and that'll pop back up, and it should update the date, which it did. So let's go over to the workbench here. On the workbench, we don't really see anything different until we go into Pronterface. So I'm going to go to Pronterface, and unfortunately in Pronterface, one of the issues that we're going to run into is I need to see the device manager configuration because I already have it open. The best way to reset the COM port is actually to close it and reopen, and it'll automatically find it. So I'll show you what's going on and how I check it. So if I'm on my desktop and I open up Device Manager, it's right here. That's the one that just appeared because this one's default to every computer, that or 3 or 2. So I'm gonna go over to the workbench first. There's no flames, that's good. So now we'll go to Pronterface and we'll change that value for the device manager, which is 13. So inside here, I'm going to click. I'm going to backspace to 13, was it? And click connect. And so now it says connecting, printer is online. So the next thing I want to do is see if it moves 100, which it looks like it does. And let's see if it homes. It probably won't because I forgot to set up sensorless homing, so we might hear a grinding noise in a second. Actually, it does nothing. So as you can see, homing's not working. So I have to actually go back and recompile this. So I'm going to go to VS Code. Inside VS Code, I have to go to the advanced configuration, search on sensorless homing. And as you can see, it is commented out. So I'm going to remove the comment. I'm going to leave the default values that we see here. They're actually precise. I was testing them earlier. There is a slight hissing noise that you hear. I went up to 10 and fixed it, but the homing is what the homing is. So up here, they have an actual chart of other steppers. That would be the SPI or TMC2130 stepper. And it functions in the same manner in that it will cause an overcurrent, which then stops the end stop because that says the end stop is reached axis's end, or axi end. Pardon my English. So I have to disconnect from Pronterface to do this, and then I'm going to upload again. And we'll see if it actually builds. Apparently I got an error. So the error is really simple. You go to the very first error. This is true of everything you compile, because that's usually where something breaks. And in this case, it says sensorless homing requires that the X minimum end stop inverting equals true. This is known as a sanity check that occurs. They won't let you do it unless you change that value. So you need to go to configuration.h. You need to search on that. And as you can see, it says false right now. So we'll change that to true. And then we'll try and compile again or upload. And this should, in theory, fix the issue of the broken compile. So let me check on the chat here what we have. Thanks, Three Head Tutor. It's always greatly appreciated when people give super chats. It's one way that it offsets my expense to buying equipment and also my time. But I will be placing Amazon affiliate links in the description. One, for your convenience to find these things. And two, they also pay a small commission to me. I think it's like 3%, but it might be less than that. But obviously the main place where I make my revenue is YouTube. But I'm working on expanding Twitch. For those that don't know, I've just started putting together a Twitch channel. And if you're an Amazon user, it's free to subscribe, I believe. I don't know the exact process, but there's a way to do it where they allow you to subscribe to Twitch channels, and that would benefit me eventually. But for now, we're going to check on the build. It looks like it's complete, so I'm going to go over and power cycle again. So let me move over to the desktop for the workbench. I'm going to pull the power, wait for this power light to go out because that's the capacitance. Then I'm going to plug back in the power, and this will load our firmware. So then I'll go over to Pronterface, and the first thing that we want to test after we connect is homing. Well, it looks pretty good. So let's test it by moving it a little. Then we'll home it again. Okay, that works. So I wanted to show you some other special features that I found with the actual homing. There's a way that you can set an offset. Sorry, I'm hearing Morse code if anybody else is hearing it. That's actually coming from the stepper. So what I'm going to do is see if we can shut it down by moving 1 millimeter here. I don't know if you can hear that Morse code. And by moving a millimeter, it shut it down. So there's some kind of calibration issue that we'll see if we can address by changing the sensitivity. I'll show you that right now. I'm going to disconnect from the actual connection to it, go back to VS Code, go to Configuration Advanced. I'm going to move this up to 10 for a safe number. Hopefully that'll take care of the actual noise. And I'm going to show you something else. This I discovered earlier today. It's called the homing bump. So over here, you can actually enable different things. And as you noticed, when I homed, it stayed all the way to the end of the axis. So I'm going to change this. This will normally give me a 2 offset when I home. This is the X, this is the Y, and this is the Z. So I'm going to change this to 20 so you can see what happens, so it's kind of exaggerated. And then I'm going to upload again. And hopefully that Morse code noise will go away. Let me check on the chat real quick here. Yeah, I think it's under E. Brayman on Twitch. It'll look like this, but obviously my Twitch channel is somewhat new. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. That and I think I'm at the bottom of the pack for just chatting on Twitch, so. Huh. Find my cousin at least. Let's see. Huh. Find my cousin at least. Oh, there's an echo from me, so I gotta shut that off. I believe this is my Twitch channel. Let me know if that works correctly. But let me get back to the build here. I'm going to go over to the desktop, or the workbench, pardon me. And I'm going to disconnect the power so that the capacitance releases it, so it goes off. Now I'm going to plug it back in. Can anybody hear me? Says the sound is working on my side. Can you hear me in the chat? Okay, yeah, I just moved it over to another USB. I know what the issue is actually. I forgot to plug in the power for my USB hub. My bad, sorry about that. But let me go check on VS Code if you can hear me now. What I was basically doing was we were homing in the opposite direction. And so I changed it back to invert the direction to false. And I'm going to reload this on the board, but I got to power it down. I don't know how long I was talking without sound, but let me power this down real quick. I'm going to actually plug this back in. As you can tell, I'm trying to work out some of the kinks for streaming still. So, I'm going to put this in here. So what I just did is just grab the, well, sorry, I gotta look at what I'm doing. I'm gonna go back over to my desktop for a second here. You can see where the build is. I gotta pop it out of VS Code. So inside VS Code, I'm gonna do view, or reveal and explore, pardon me. Minimize that so you can see it in a second. So we need to send the new build over. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to send to the D drive. Then I'm going to pop the D drive out and bring it over to the workbench. This is fixing the inverted direction because there's something off with it. And it is the way they outline the boards for the .h files and the build files might be different. But I'm gonna power it back up now, and hopefully we'll move in the right direction. Let me check on the chat real quick. Okay, everybody looks good in there right now, so let me go over to what we're doing here. So I'm gonna bring you over to Pronterface, and I'm going to reconnect, and I'm gonna move 100. And then I'm gonna try and home. So it's a little rough when it homes. You can always adjust the value in VS Code per your printer. And I'll show you again where Sensorless Homing is. So if you search on Config Advanced for Sensorless, this value can vary between actual printer boards. So I'm gonna try the SKR version 1.2 to see if it works. So I'm going to power this down real quick. Starting to seem like I need a pre-flight checklist before I actually start working on my stream in the future. There's like 8 things I need to check before I start. Most of them are, does everything display? But the ones I usually forget are, did I plug in the power to the hub? Because it usually causes camera issues and now sound issues. So let me get this out of the way. And I'll grab the SKR version, or SKR Pro version 1.2 and see if that's different. And then we'll move on to the GTR and then open questions. Okay, here it is. On the flip side, we haven't had any board failures today, which is super odd. But let me secure this better. Okay, so power is exactly the same. It appears to be. We'll double check in a second. But I'm gonna hook it up just to be safe. Looks like the jumpers for SPI might be the same. So we might not have to change anything. But this will only take like a minute. Well, not a minute, maybe 2 or 3 minutes if we do this right. But we don't want to rush. Or at least I don't want to rush because that's how I make errors. But what's a broadcast without errors in a live stream? Guess you'd just call it a live stream? I'll check on the chat in a second just to make sure I'm not making any errors. Okay, I'm gonna lock that down. I'm gonna plug that in, and I'm gonna drop the chip in because I'm reasonably confident. The only problem is I picked the chip up and put it away. So I just grabbed it out of the other board. And there it is. So let's go over and check the browser real quick. The browser, we've got the version. We need to go back and look at the other one. So we have to go to the Pro folder, then the SKR Pro version 1.2 folder. Click on Manual. And then carefully click on the right manual. And I'm going to scroll down real quick to find it. I may be skipping some important steps, but we're leaving it in regular power. So, plus and minus are good. Double check over here. Plus minus, so voltage ground. There's something about SPI over here. but they might be talking about pins in here. We'll find out in a second, but there might be jumpers that we need to worry about, but these might be actual end stops. But CS is actually chip select, so I'm guessing they're talking about something in here. The chip select is basically like a mailbox number for each stepper. That's a simple way to explain it. Let's see, UART mode 5. So all the pins need to be jumped. And it looks like that's all we have to worry about. So I'm going to go back over to VS Code to make these changes. So in VS Code, obviously it's kind of simple. We're going to go over to config.h. We're going to search on motherboard. And then we're going to go and we're going to find the motherboard, which is actually just that. So I already have it memorized unless you saw it earlier. But I'm going to do the build with the checkbox. Hopefully I didn't click upload. And I'll go over and check on the chat, make sure that my sound is good. Is my sound too hot? Okay, well, let me jump over to the actual build again here to see how it's going, and also grab a little bit of liquid so I'm less cotton mouth. Okay, it looks like it took 29 seconds, so same process as before. So I'm going to go over to the actual workbench. Everything's powered down. So I'm going to verify that because I have the power right here. I'm going to pop out the actual card, place it in here, and then push it all the way down and pop it in the computer and hopefully not lose all my sound. Okay. So the process right now is we're going to go over to the desktop and I'm going to pull up the actual build in VS Code by right-clicking on the .pio folder. I'll show you what I'm doing. So in VS Code, you're going to double-click, go to Build, then SKR Pro, and then you're going to right-click and say Reveal in Explorer. I'll minimize that so you can see it better on the other screen, and I'll bring you over there so you can see it. So same as before, this is the drive that was in there. Obviously, I think that was from last night. So I'm going to right click on firmware.bin and I'm going to send it to D drive. Then I'm going to pop that out and I'm going to place it inside the board. Then I'm going to connect the actual USB, and then I'm going to connect the power. And then we'll also see if there's smoke. So far so good. So I'm going to go over to Pronterface, and I'm going to first figure out what the device manager says for the COM port. It now says 17. So I'm going to change the 3 to a 17. And I'm going to connect. Now it says the printer is now online. Let's double check the actual stepper. Stepper looks okay. So what we're going to do is move 100 just to make sure we're okay. Then we're going to home. So it's reasonably good homing. You could obviously make it better by adjusting it over here in VS Code. So the sensitivity might need to be adjusted, maybe down to an 8, but we have the actual understanding of what it is in this row over here. So it's usually pretty close to these values of 8, but I cranked it up to 10 because of that hissing noise, so it's kind of a rough homing that you're seeing. So there's one last board I want to show you, and then I'll open up for some more questions. So let me show you the GTR version 1.0. So let me see where I am here. I'm gonna power down the system for a second and disconnect everything so I can set this up. So I'll let you see what I'm doing for the moment. So I'm gonna take the power out. Everything's powered down. Power cords out. Expose these. Pop those out. Pop that out. Pull out the chip. And everything's clear. Lift the board up. And then I'm going to set up the GTR as soon as I can grab it. So I got the GTR. It takes a little bit of time. Let me bring the camera back online. So here's the board. Same thing with the power. We need to see what is what, and it looks like it's similar, so we'll double check with the directions in a minute. We won't power anything up until we know for sure. So first things first, we'll do the motor power. Then we'll do the ground portion of the driver. So voltage and ground. And the other one looks to be voltage and ground 2. So we'll do that one first. Tighten that down nice and taut. Then we'll do this one right here. Those are nice and tight. We're going to cover them for safety. Then we're going to jump into here. Let's assume that we're SPI again. So we'll take this and connect it according to how it's aligned. And then we're not sure about these jumpers either. So now we'll go and check in the actual browser for GitHub. So I'll get over the browser myself here. I go back twice, go to Big Tree Tech, and you don't see the GTR here, so you have to go to repositories. Then you're going to type GTR, if I spell right, GTR, and there it is. You're going to click on Big Tree Tech, you're going to go to the manual, and it says operating instructions. So I'm guessing that's the one. And then, of course, we'll scroll down and see what's going on here. Sorry, I'm scrolling quick. It's just I want to get to the actual place where the information is. Jumper, as usual, is going to be on power. So this one right here. The other one's for USB. Also, the steppers don't work for UART and SPI very well if you're on the USB. They'll work on this section only. I learned that the hard way. It won't damage anything, it just won't work right. So let's see. Was there a schematic I passed? Probably not yet. Okay, they're not showing it super clear, so let's look here. Yeah, so voltage ground, voltage ground. Then let's see if they have SPI. Alright, this manual is a little bit longer than normal. So that's for step dir. Here's UART. Then SPI. So SPI is all the pins covered. Talking about filament detect, so that's something else. So up here, it looks like we're all set. Let's see what happens. If it smokes, then I've made a mistake. So I'm gonna go to the workbench for a second. I'll plug in the actual GTR. Then I'll plug in the actual power to it. I don't see any smoke, so far so good. So let's go over to VS Code and set this up real quick. So like before, configuration.h, we got to change this thing right here. We need to go over to, well, you know the process, but for those that are just joining us, maybe you don't. So I'm going to go to source core boards.h. I'm going to search on GTR_V, and that's going to bring us to the Big Tree Tech version of this. Note that it's a slightly different configuration for the processor, so I'm going to have to look that up. So I'm going to go over to configuration.h. I'm going to paste that right here. Don't have to worry about this because it's allegedly set correctly, so I have to go to platformio.ini and search on GTR_V, and that's going to bring us to what we need for the default environment. So I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to paste that in for a default environment, and that'll take care of our chipset. So let's just hit the compile or build button. I'm going to power down the system while this is going on, but I'm also going to check on the chat. Sound is good, everyone? Okay, so I'll show you what I'm doing over here now. So it looks like the build failed. So let's see if there's anything special here that we need to know. Peripheral pins. Wow, that's real clear. So I'm going to do a clean, then I'm going to build again, and hopefully that'll go away. But I'll watch it for a second, make sure everything's good. This also allows me to take a quick sip of liquid. So it does look like it's building. So I'm going to go over to the actual workbench for a second. I'm going to pop out the actual drive, which apparently I've done already. So I'm going to have to try a marginally questionable drive. I just grabbed one off my bench. I'm going to plug that in. And I'm going to see what happens. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a disaster. So inside VS Code, I'm going to go back over there so you can see it. It's the same process as the SKR Pro version 1.1 and 1.2. So we need to go over to .pio, build, GTR, right click, go to reveal and explorer. Then we have to go over to our desktop so we can see this. And what I want to do is go into the Big Tree folder, find firmware.bin, right click, and send it over to the other drive. But this might be the drive from last night I was having trouble with, because it says that it's 640. So that tells me it might be that drive that's an issue. But let's see what happens. So I'm going to send it to that drive, and then I'm going to pop that out and put it in the actual drive. Slide this in here. I'm actually going to put the USB in first and then plug it in. Let's see if there's any smoke. There's no smoke. I don't know if it's loading because I'm not seeing the flashing lights. So it might be a bad drive, but someone asked about USB as a possible way to load. Actually, I don't have one on my desk at the moment other than that folding one. But let's see what happens if we can connect to it. So I'm looking in Device Manager and I don't see a communications port. So that probably means it didn't load. So I'm going to power it back down and try a different drive. And in this case, I'm just going to grab a drive out of a known good board. So I'm grabbing the drive from the SKR Pro. I'm going to see if this one actually works, because we just used it a second ago. So I'm going to pop this one out and we'll reload it again. So if we go over to the desktop, find the other drive here. There we go. I'm going to right click, send to the D drive, and then we'll pop this back out and try it again. In theory, this should work. Okay, so I'm gonna plug in the USB again. Hopefully this will fix the problem. If you can believe it, I am having less problems than I did yesterday. It's flashing, so that's good. So the green flashing light to the left of the chip underneath those three lights. And we now have a COM port. So the analysis of the problem that I was having was a bad USB or SD, micro SD card. That's why it wasn't loading. And that's why I was having trouble last night. I kept passing the card from one configuration to the next. So let's go over to Pronterface on the workbench. The actual number for this one shows as number 4. So I'm going to change the COM port to 4. Then I'm going to connect. So it says now online. Let's check the chip status. And it says okay. Let's move 100. This is obviously going in the wrong direction, so we know the fix to this real quick. Just disconnect. We go over to VS Code. Go over to configuration.h. We do a search on invert. And inside here, we change the false to a true. So that's invert x dir. So we're gonna build again, and I'm gonna power the system down for the moment and pop out the drive, and then I'll check on the chat. Now after we verified this works, is there another board you want to see, like an MKX board or MKR? I'm having trouble remembering maker-based names right now. So let me load this one up real quick here. So I'll show you what I'm doing. On the desktop, in the GTR folder, I just popped it out from the .pio folder. Right clicking, I'm sending it to the USB drive. And I'll pop out the USB and pop it back in. Powering it back up. I'm gonna wait for the green light over here. It's flashing, so it looks like it's loading. I don't know how well you can see that green light because I might have it over illuminated. And let's go over to Pronterface and connect again. It says now online. We'll do an M122. It looks good there. Let's try moving the axis 100. Go in the right direction. Let's try homing. Okay, so it's worked on a bunch of different configurations. So is there a configuration you want to see me do? Now that I have this set up and I can do both SPI and UART, I'll probably turn some of these into individual videos. Obviously, I'll be talking a lot slower. That's only because for some reason, every time I do one of these videos, and I talk rather fast and long, the algorithm that picks out my voice on YouTube takes forever to close caption because I'm continuously talking, as you can. So let me peek over in the chat here, see what's going on. So anybody have any questions on something they want to see? I know I've whittled down the audience today to 3 people, but for those that don't know, I do have a Discord where you can ask questions. If I'm not there, somebody else usually can answer the question. And let's see. For those that have been tipping with the super chats, it's greatly appreciated. You don't know how important it is to help me offset the expense of the parts that I'm working with. But if no one's got any questions, I'll end the stream early so that you can catch up on other things in your day. And then if you do have a question, you know where to find me on Discord. And everyone take care, be safe, and thank you for taking the time to watch.